Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I just feel the need to announce that right now I have a steak pie in the microwave, in the air fryer with my chips and veg, and I am so excited. I haven't had a steak pie in ages, so I'm sure you'll hear it all over my Instagram stories if I really liked it or if it just really didn't add up to what I thought it would be. Anyway, how is everyone? Today we are going to be doing steps and walking, why it's important, why it helps you with your health, why it's going to help you with your fat loss goals. And yes, I haven't brushed my hair again, but I'm sure that you guys are getting used to that now when I do my filming on a Sunday. Sunday is my lazy day, so basically pajamas are on, hair is unbrushed, but we are snuggly and that is all that matters. So let's just dive straight into it. Let's just get into this webinar. So why are steps so important for general health? Now, I really want to advocate this because, as you guys know, you're in a fat loss program, but how you maintain your results, so say you get to where you want to be, the only way that you're going to do that is if you can actually have the habits and lifestyle changes that you have in place that you can actually maintain. So that's why my program, I do it rather than sort of going for like a fad diet and like losing weight as quickly as possible, shall I say. I sort of aim for the approach of where it's like a lifestyle change. It's something that you can maintain and we sort of just chip away at it. And steps is one of the most easiest ways that you can do that. And also, like, the thing is, it has amazing health benefits as well, so that should be an advocate on why you should increase your steps, even if there's nothing to do with fat loss. But it does help fat loss. But even if it didn't, if you can get improvements at all of these, which I'm not going to list because there's so many, but just pause it and have a read of it. But the one that I really like to highlight is increase energy levels and reduce fatigue. Now, I know that sounds really contradicting, but trust me, it does improve. Now, it's not going to be a case of like, okay, you feel really, I know what it's like I've been there, I've done that 9 to 5 job, and like the last thing you want to do is do more physical activity when you've already either done a physical job or you have, been in the office all day and it's been really mentally draining. Like, trust me, I know what it feels like, but also I know what it feels like when you come home and you've got no energy. But then, like, from the other end of it, I know what it's like that when you come home from work and you still have loads of energy and you can still, I can't relate to this, play with your kids, but I do know that I can still do other things like my side hustle. Back in the days with Bexy Fit, this was a side hustle, and before I wouldn't have had the energy to do that. So I'm such an advocate on it. And also, like, this is like a little hack, is that if you are going through that, like, say it's a weekend and you're having that like 4 p.m. slump that everyone does, I do, actually going for a walk it reboosts your energy. And I know you're like, oh no, does it really? It really does. Now give it a try. So I'm going to go through this webinar not as quick as possible, but as efficient as possible, because I have realised that I do like to chat a lot. But one thing that I really want to highlight as well is that we are not designed to be sedentary creatures. Like, I don't always like comparing ourselves to our ancestors because that's not always helpful. I think we were grazers. We were naturally like scavengers, like the men would go hunting and the women would go, they would be in their cave. I know some people don't like using that analogy, but it is true. It's what we did. And like overall, like we would go around and we would forage for food and we would move around. And I think I've read a study that something like, on average, our ancestors used to do like 15,000 steps a day or something ridiculous. Now we barely get like 4,000 steps a day. You're classed as sedentary if you do less than 5,000 steps a day. Now that fascinates me. So we are not designed to be sedentary creatures, and this is why we have an obesity and an overweight problem in the UK and the US and Australia as well, believe it or not. So the studies show that people that have a higher NEAT, so basically people that just move around more, have a decrease in cardiovascular events, so basically like heart disease, by 27%, and a 30% reduction in all-cause mortality. So basically what that means is anything that can cause death, they have a 30% reduction. So these stats from this study just shows how important steps can be, or just general activity. But the best way to get general activity would be like through movement, so we're walking. Now, is 10k steps really the magic number? Now, actually, no. 10k steps came from 1964 Tokyo Olympics. Basically, there was like massive, like around the Olympics at this time, there was like massive crazes around like fitness, which is not a bad thing. And companies, like international companies, tried to capitalize on it. And that's where they come from, like the 10k steps, or 10k steps to reduce mortality, or 10k steps to improve health, etc. It caught on really globally because we do live that sedentary lifestyle. We, as I said, we're not even hitting like 3,000, 4,000 steps, let alone, 8,000 steps. But to be honest, it's not really 10,000 steps. This study is a meta-analysis and it looked at 15 different studies. So altogether it had like 50,000 people that they looked at. And it showed that 8 to 10k, depending on your age, tends to be the the best step target to sort of adhere to on a daily basis. Adults 60 or older benefit from 6 to 8k steps a day, and adults under 60 benefited from 8 to 10k steps a day. So in other words, if you wanted all the benefits from the previous slide, these are sort of a really good marker range. So takeaways, I would say aim to 8 to 10k for optimal health benefits from walking. So if I'm in a maintenance phase, I will aim for 8 to 10k steps a day. I will push more for 10 just because then it's a lot easier to find that in my natural routine. But I also if I only get 8k on the weekend, I'm absolutely cool with that. Now, the real question is that a lot of people ask is so okay, if that's for health, how much should we be doing for fat loss? Now, we know that I'm going to go into the NEAT and everything, like what exactly that is, but we know for fat loss, we want to get the balance of reducing our calories, reducing our actual, how much we're eating, but also increasing our energy expenditure, so how much we're moving. We need to get that fine balance. Now, if you walk, you're going to increase your energy expenditure. Being honest, and this is not necessarily evidence-based, this is purely from my own personal experience, from my own fat loss journey, and from coaching other women into their fat loss goals. The biggest for me, it was between 12 and 15k, and I saw the biggest drop in my fat loss. So the quickest way for me to lose weight was by really pushing for 15k steps a day. Some people don't like to hear it, but that's just how it is. The biggest difference in fat loss results I see for clients is when they do 12 to 15k steps a day. But I want people to really understand that this might not be optimal for you. And please remember this, someone who does 3,000 steps a day, suddenly tell them to do 15,000 steps a day is probably just going to cause them joint ache, and it's going to be really hard because they've got to implement that into the routine. They've got to find the time, and it's going to be more stress. So I'm not saying, okay, you must do this. I always say that a really good starting point for people is to find out what your natural steps are and just add 3k and increase until it's really affecting your life. So when you find that the cost is outweighing the benefit, so say you find that every minute living day of your life you're walking, probably not worth it. But then if you find that you are spending a lot of time walking, because when I was doing 15,000 steps a day, being honest, I was doing 2.5 hours of walking every day. But from someone who could just sort of go on my phone and do a lot of coaching, and when I was off on my night shifts, and to be honest, my night shifts I would end up doing this anyway, it worked well for my lifestyle, so it didn't have much cost. So that's another point when I didn't add it onto the slide, is just weighing out what the cost is. But actually, just a really good start point is just adding 3k, and you will still see benefits. But ultimately, a good goal for fat loss is aiming for 10 to 12 for the average person. I would just say the average person aim for 10 to 12k steps a day, aiming for 12 where you can, but 10 is a good that is the bare minimum. If you really, really want to speed up your results, if you're look, I want to lose X per week and I really just want to get in and out, then 12 to 14k, if you've got the time, is really going to speed up your results. I recommend everyone, because I know some of you still don't have a pedometer. A pedometer is just something that tracks steps. So let's be real, we spend £500 on these watches, and really all we do is watch it to count steps. It is so true. I get the odd text message every now and then, but you can get pedometers. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, but you can get basic step trackers on Amazon for £30 or 20 quid, 20 to 30 quid, probably 30 quid for one that's actually going to work. Or even then, just go onto your Facebook marketplace and just type in Fitbit, and someone will be selling a secondhand Fitbit for 20 quid. So there's no excuse. I really recommend that everyone that's valuing their health and is trying to lose body fat becomes aware of their steps, because you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck by just increasing your step target, and at least doing this for a period of time. So, we've gone back. Right, why walking is great for fat loss. So before we go into the science of NEAT and everything, I'm just going to give you the practical reasons. Is that it's easy, anyone can do it, anyone can walk. Some people are going to be more efficient at walking than others, but at the end of the day, anyone can walk, anyone can do it anywhere. You can do it at home, you can do it outside, there's no excuse. It's practical to do it anytime. You can go for a 10-minute walk on your lunch break, but doing 30 burpees in the middle of the office is probably going to be weird, and it's not going to burn, and the reality is it's not going to burn as many calories either. So you can add it into your life, and I think that's a really good point as well, is it adds to your life rather than takes away. Telling someone to do 10 minutes of HIIT cardio every day, eventually, if you enjoy it, be my guest, but it's quite highly impactful. It's actually doesn't really help recovery. It can be really stressful for your body. Whereas going for a walk actually promotes recovery, and it's a really, really good mindful tool and exercise to have. So walking outside improves health. Like 30 minutes of fresh air and or sunlight has huge benefits to health. I put fresh air and or sunlight because I know that it's not always practical, especially in the winter, to get 30 minutes of sunlight, but it's really beneficial. But I always say, if you can't get the sunlight, at least get the fresh air. This will have a huge impact to your health. And again, I'm not going to read them all. You can pause it and look at it, but the one that really I've got my words out. The one that really stands out to me is recovery and healing. Like, there is really strong research that shows that walking has benefits to your recovery period. So when you are like doing these big lifts and you are sort of really looking to build muscle, walking can actually really help recover your body. Also improves mindfulness, self-awareness, improves sleep. So yeah, I just find walking, it's just, as you can tell, it's such a really good, oh my god, I cannot get my word out today. It is a really, really good power tool. So compared to exercise, you're less likely to get extreme hunger and cravings, and this is really, really helpful for fat loss, because when you ramp up your energy expenditure, especially if it's not what you're used to, at the end of the day, if your body is used to eating say 1,800 calories and you're increasing your energy expenditure and actually you're burning 2,000 calories, your body is going to want that energy. It's going to say, oh, hang on a minute, I'm hungry. It's called an equilibrium and homeostasis. Your body wants to stay at a normal, and that's why you'll get increased hunger. Now, by doing really intense exercise, you're just going to ramp that up. You're going to increase your cravings because your body's like, I want something quick. So that's why HIIT workouts and running sometimes is a bit counterproductive for fat loss goals if you can't control the hunger. But walking doesn't do that unless you're doing ridiculous amount of walking, like 20k per steps per day. Walking shouldn't increase your hunger by too much. It's also, I love this one, it's you time. It's practical mindfulness and being present, and just being around nature, putting a podcast on, just doing something for you. And even if you don't have the luxury of being around nature, say you live in a city, actually just sometimes what I do when I'm going on more of my urban walks, I'll take my earphones out and I'll just look around me, and I'll people watching in a weird way, look at who's around me, what is that person doing, oh, look at that building. And it just makes you more mindful, and oh my god, I know I sound like a hippie, but just being more mindful, being more present, just makes you a more all-rounded, happier person. Now, you're going to go into walking for fat loss in more of a science term, but I'm going to not go too far into it because I think I've covered this before. So when you increase your walking, you're also increasing something called your NEAT. Now, NEAT is here, and this is one of the equations called your TDEE. So this is basically how many calories you will burn per day. As you can see, your biggest one is BMR, which is just by doing nothing. And then your second one is NEAT. EAT is exercise, so things like HIIT or if you're training. And then TFF is eating, so metabolism by digesting food. So NEAT is the second biggest one, and you can have the biggest impact. They say it's around 15% of total metabolism. Now, the interesting thing, and this is a study, that actually it can show that people can burn up to 2,000 calories per day just by their NEAT, depending on what they're doing. Now, this study looks at total daily energy expenditure depending on work intensity. So you can imagine someone who's chair bound is going to burn a lot less calories than someone that's doing say farming, and you can see the calories per day depending on what you do. So as you can imagine, someone who is in an office job, say this is here, they're going to burn far less calories than someone, as I said, doing farming or doing something quite physical. Now, the good news is that even if you are sitting here and you're like, you know what, I only burn 700 calories by doing this, but actually you can then increase it by going out for a walk. So there's ways that you can counteract this, and I just find that, for me, I find that really empowering. It means that you're not stuck. So when people say, oh, I can't do this, or I don't burn that many calories because I have an office job, but you still have the control, you just have to be tactical, which we'll move on to in a second, more practical ways. So walking offers a more accessible and sustainable approach to maintaining consistency and routine and structured exercise routines. So what I mean by this, I know that's a big, bold statement, but what I mean by this is you can have your exercise routines, but you might only exercise 3-4 times a week. And also that you're putting strain in your body. There's always going to be that mental, I have to do this, where walking can just become part of your daily routine. The cliche, take the elevator and take the stairs, not the elevator, parking further away from the shops, all these cliche things, going for morning walks. I love my morning walk in the morning. It's one of the habits that I've really got myself into. Even I did it for fat loss, and now I just do it as part of my day. I will have my coffee in the morning, then I'll go for a walk, and then I'll have my breakfast. It's one of the best things I do because it starts the day. Even in the winter, by the way, even in the winter, I actually ordered some joggers from Shein, like some fluffy ones, just so that I didn't have the excuse to say that it was too cold. And I just think that it just means that you can actually maintain this and be consistent with it rather than have to think about it. It just becomes part of your habit. It's an activity that can be easily integrated into daily life, regardless of your fitness goals. Like, even if your goal is performance based, even if your goal is fat loss, there's always room for walking, and it just makes it a practical long way to actually help maintain your weight. There was a study, I haven't got it up right now, but basically it says that the research shows that people that have a high increase in NEAT, so what we spoke about in the last slide, are more likely to maintain their weight. And I just think that goes to show that how important walking can be. So practical ways to increase steps is to take the stairs, not the lift. I know that's a really cliche one, but it does help. Park furthest away from the shops, about 300 steps. So for me, about 300 steps each way, depending on what shop. So if I've got a big supermarket and I park literally far away, by the time I walk to the Tesco's, it is about 300 steps, but I walk back, that's another 300. So that's 600 steps just by parking a little bit further away. I always say, if you've got 5 minutes, go for a walk, even if it's indoors. If I've got like 5 minutes and also like if you're office based as well, I'm not going to go into the health and safety of this, but like you should be moving around. Like you shouldn't just be stationary on your office desk, and you should make a point if your employers have been really strict on that, you should actually make a point that you should be able to get up and move. I think it's like every 2 hours or something you should be moving. I can't remember the ins and outs. So I would say go for a walk around the block. For me, like I go around for a walk around the block, but if it is raining, I will just sort of like potter around up and down the stairs, and I'll just sort of reply to messages, get into the habit of doing that. And I really like this one. So when I mean by be proactive, I mean like make people tea at work. Like I am like that person that goes around and like says, do you want the tea? Like, do you want this? Do you want that? Like if someone's being lazy and they're like, oh, I can't be able to go get it, I'm like, I'll go get it. And people like, do you want it? It's a win-win, because people think I'm like bloody incredible because I'm doing stuff for them, but actually I'm like, I'm being selfish. I'm doing it for steps. Like at work, I'm like terrible. If someone's like in a different ward, they're like, oh, I need to go get that. I'm like, I'll go get it. People think, oh wow, she's such a calm person. I'm like, I'm just doing it for my step goals. It's like the walking the dogs. I'm like, I'll walk them because I get to go out and I get to do my steps. Everyone's like, oh, thank you so much for doing my job for me. I'm like, you're welcome, but I'm doing it for me, to be honest. And also, like, I like walking the dogs. It's fun. So I don't always like telling people this because I think it can make people really obsessed with calories. But, I'm very much like, just give the people the information. If you do 1,000 steps, you will burn about 20 to 40 calories. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're doing an extra 5,000 steps, work that one out. It all adds up. But please don't be that person that eats back their calories. Just like look at it like, okay, I've increased my energy expenditure for the day. Even if you did like 20,000 steps. I used to have this client, I used to be obsessed with them, and they lived in New York, and he'd be like, I've done like 20,000 steps. And I'd be like, okay, cool. And then he'd be like, that's why I was really hungry, so I ate more food. I'm like, no, at the end of the day, like you probably wasn't hungry because you did those extra steps because it's such a passive way, unless you were like power walking. It was just an excuse to eat more food. And yeah, we had to have a few words. So roughly 10 minutes of walking is 1,000 to 1,400 steps. This really does depend on your stride and the speed of walking, and to be honest, how fit you are. The more you do, the easier it will get. Like when I first started like my fitness journey, I could barely walk up a hill without getting out of breath. Now I'm like one of the fittest I've ever been, and that is because I've just been consistent with it. But this just gives you a really good idea. So practical ways is find routes that you can add into your routine. So the way of doing this is find routes around your area that you live by and calculate the steps. And so time how long you're going to do. Say you're going to say, okay, I'm going to go to the shops and back, time it, and then actually monitor how many steps you do. And this will take a couple of months to get used to. So for myself, I have 4 main routes. I have Co-op and back, so that's like my local shop, and that's 3,000 steps, and that takes about 20 minutes. The Science Park and back, so like basically just like a landmark where I live, does 4,500 steps, and that's 25 minutes. The little nature walk that I do in the morning is 2,500 steps, and it's 15 minutes. And then the big nature walk that I can do is 5,500 steps, and that's 30 minutes. So I will then plan my day the night before on these routes I'm going to do. And to be honest, now it's just second nature. I go for 3 walks a day. I go for 1 in the morning, 1 after lunch, and 1 after dinner. And I just you know, okay, my morning one, I'll do my little nature walk one. My lunchtime one, I tend to go to Co-op. And this is another hack as well, is find an excuse. So I will just, like, even if I just buy like a little tiny Options hot chocolate, like, it's a lot easier to go for a walk when you've got a purpose. Like, so I will find something, like, to be honest, I'm such a feeder, so I'll say to Ash, do you want some chocolate for your oats? And he's like, yeah. So I'll go to the shops and get some chocolate for him. It just gives you more of a purpose, which can be a really good hack. And then I'll go for lunch. I'll go for a walk after dinner as well. So me getting 3 walks in a day is pretty easy for me to get to 10k, because the average person will do between like 2 to 4 steps, but steps by just doing nothing. So then you need to find a way to be able to like get those increased steps up. So say you do 4,000 steps, you need to find a way to get 6,000 steps. So just by monitoring, looking at like where you're walking, how many steps you're doing, how long it's taking, by just being more aware of this, it means you can start structuring your plan. Like, I like to say, treat steps as like a non-negotiable. I think I put this on the other slide. Like, treat it like a non-negotiable. Like, you need to do this as part of your plan to get to where you want to be. So don't make any excuses. And the way that you can do that is by actually creating structure behind it. The first 3 months of your program will be trial and error, but eventually it will become routine. And take advantage of the like mornings and evenings. Like, I noticed when I was coming back from the gym today that it was like 4:30 and it was still light, when 4 months ago, like 2 months ago, it was dark. So take advantage of that. Like, don't use that as an excuse. Like, it's light, go outside. And, you know, even if it's raining, like, I'm so sorry, but put a fucking coat on. Like, the amount of times that someone's like, I didn't get my steps done today because it was raining. I'm like, unless it's torrential rain, and obviously not, but like, if it's like a bit of like spit, or like even just a little bit light rain, get an umbrella, get a coat. Like, what's the big deal? The more attention that you give to the steps, the easier it will get, the more it will become part of your routine. And like, I'm not going to sit and lie to you, it will be, you know, it will be effort for the first 3 months, because you all of a sudden are ramping up your energy expenditure, you all of a sudden are trying to find a routine to get your steps in, but you will find what works for you. And there's not really much more that I can give advice on. Like, this is where like my one-to-one coaching comes in, because if someone's struggling with their steps, a one-to-one, we can really like like have a little look day by day how you can get steps in. You know, oh, can you go for a walk? Or, you know, someone, can you go for a walk before work? They're like, no, because I do this. Okay, can you go for a walk on your break? Yes. Okay. And we find like one-to-one things, but you can do that yourself. Just literally look at your day-to-day as a linear thing, and then you will start to find routine. Mindset is really important as well. So see it as a non-negotiable. Like, you have to do this as part of your program, and remember, the high step count isn't forever. So at maintenance, you can get away with doing 8k 10k steps, and trust me, from someone who was doing 15k steps every day and couldn't let go of it, to then being like literally forced to do 8 to 10, I was literally like, this is so easy. I was like, I do this without even thinking. So just look at it like that. And also have the mindset of that you get to move your body. Like, it's a gift to be able to move your body, and it's time for you. Like, it's time to be with yourself and be outside. Like, even if you don't have nature, just appreciate the things around you. Like, trust me, it's amazing. And also think about all the health benefits you get from walking. Another like more practical tips as well is like walking pads. So this one is one I just found. It's like 180 quid, and you can just like pack it up in that. I really want one, but I just don't want to spend the money. And I was so gutted, right? So someone was selling one in my local town for 50 quid, and I was like, debating it, and I wish I did. But yeah, if you've got the money, these can be really helpful too. Step YouTube videos. I think he's called Rick, Steps with Rick. Really cringy guy, but it does get the job done. I personally don't enjoy it. I personally would much rather just have a walk, go out for a walk, even if it's really, really rainy. But they do work. They are ways of doing them. And the treadmill after a gym session with a Netflix show, like, can't really beat it, can you? So you go to the gym and you do your workout, just do like 20 minutes of walking, and you'll get like 2,000 steps in. So this is for the people that are like, look, I just can't get 10k steps in per day. Like, so a way of looking at it is look at your weekly target rather than a daily target. So if you're saying your target is 10k a day, that's 70 a week. If your target is 12k a day, that's 84 a week. Can you do more on certain days? Like, some people obviously have weekends spare, so they're like, okay, we're going to go for longer walks during the week. You know, someone who finishes on a half day on a Friday means that they've got an extra hour. Can you do extra walking? Can you split it up and just look at it from an average? If you find steps are impossible, so like you've tried all of this, you've like, look, I really can't get more than 8,000 steps done a day, I really can't, you can look at doing in steady state cardio. So that would be anything from a heart rate from 120 to 140. The reason why this is not my first protocol is because I think cardio for fat loss, yes, it will increase your energy expenditure and it can help with fat loss goals, but I think it's such a fine line from just doing exercise for purely burning calories, rather than looking at cardio as a way of like actually helping with your cardiovascular health. That's just my opinion, but it is a tool. So anyway, that is all from me for steps. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you are struggling with steps, I'm going to be doing on your feedback form, I'm going to be doing a section on steps, so we can really focus on how you're doing, and then I will be able to give you some like one-to-one tips on how you can get your steps to be increased.